Most people dread the annual review, whether you're a leader or an individual contributor. It's that time of year that you're stressed out, you're pulled in multiple directions, and you don't know what to do. And you've got this message from HR. Hey, it's that time. Today, we're going to break the cycle, and I have the perfect guest here that I cannot wait to share with you. But before that, good day to you all, and welcome to Bad Day Excellence, the podcast where we turn those tough days into opportunities for growth. I'm Brian Walsh, the author of Habitcraft 101, and this crazy, messy life of mine and a mission that is to help 9.5 million people is brought to you every week. And this week we have Cassie Underwood. I found her on TikTok, and it was so much fun because we've been going back and forth and connecting, and I think I found another one of my people. Welcome, Cassie.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Yeah, so I'm on TikTok and I have content developed to helping people be better leaders. And Brian and I have a lot of different kind of perspectives, and yet sometimes we still connect and we're able to have this really great professional relationship through TikTok. And now we're here, we're speaking live. So, a little bit about myself. I do have a corporate job, and through this, I've struggled with a lot of different leaders, and I want to help people not have those same struggles. I also am in the Iowa Army National Guard. That's where 90% of my leadership comes from. I've led in a traditional unit. I also do officer candidate school, where it is you're developing leaders from the ground up. So a lot of different experiences there. And I love to read. I read the Harvard Business Review, any leadership books, just because leadership is a journey that is continuous. It never stops, and it's a practice that you have to put in every day. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to talk about our topic today.
Yes. And what is really great is that both of us are elbows deep in Brene Brown. Very recent post, you had a book of Dare to Lead, and
hmm
I currently am doing the audiobook thing for Strong Ground. One of the things that I love about Brene Brown is that I don't know, it's she's talking to me. That's how,
Yes.
like, I feel like her, Mel Robbins, like Simon Sinek, like I think that's one of the reasons why I love consuming all this content, because they're grounded, as well as when I see them and view them, I don't see them as like these big, lofty, monumental people. The way that they talk and engage is so human. And I think
Yes.
that's what's really important is from a leadership perspective is to be human. So now that we're here, we're in December, it's review time. When you think about the end of year or even the mid-year review season, what is the first emotion or memory that comes to you?
Honestly, it's kind of just like boredom. Like I am a go-getter. I make sure I hit my goals. Like I'm doing above and beyond just because that's just how I am. And a lot of that's driven from military where you really have to work to be seen. Especially in the National Guard when we only meet 2 days out of the month. Like you really have to push yourself. So when I look at my review, it's like I know I'm doing above and beyond, and I track it efficiently outside of that, where when I'm putting in my notes, it's just like, "Oh, here's just another thing that I have to do." So it's for me and where I'm at in my role, it's just like, here's another thing that I have to do to make sure my manager knows I'm actually doing my job. In the past, more of like military, it's something I feel like pride because it's the one time in military where I can really give praise to myself and look back and holy crap, I accomplished so much. So it's kind of a little bit of both depending on, where I'm at in my role.
Have you ever had the manager review of like, here's the compliment sandwich? Like some of those age-old reviews that
Yes,
you weren't
yes.
quite sure? Yeah.
Yes, like, "Oh, you're doing
I
great, but you
remember.
can work on this." Yeah.
Yeah, and then but keep going, you know?
Right,
And
yeah.
that's one of the things that, like I mentioned, it's a for leadership, it's about connecting. And when you talk about dread, right? Or boredom, oh my God. Like I can remember several times where we're like, I'm just going through the motions. Like, go ahead, just give it to me. Or could have been an email, right? Like
Mhm.
there's no real substance to it.
Yes.
and you and I were kindred spirits. We're self-driven, right? We're self-led. We know we want to keep moving forward. There are the individuals that are they work to live, and I love that. I once had a senior leader, chief marketing officer, who sat me down and said, Brian, there are two types of people. There are thinkers and there are doers. You need both, but you want to be a thinker. And so that's been with me for the past, what, God, like 14 years. And so that lesson has always been I asked myself, who am I? By connecting with people like yourself and and finding more thinkers, it's like these are the people that probably need to be within the leadership space because they're not just checking box. I have another question for you. In your view, why does review season feel heavier for leaders and even contributors?
Yeah, I think a lot of it ties back to they're not doing what a leader should do during the year prior to this lead up. They're not having those hard conversations. They're not giving the feedback when something happens in real time. And so they're kind of waiting until this performance review to kind of lay it all out there. And I think that isn't okay because then the employee might be shocked, which they shouldn't. They everyone should know how their performance review should go because they should be getting that feedback. They should be understanding if they're hitting their goals or they aren't. So I think a lot of it just comes with they're not giving that feedback in an appropriate time. They're also not maybe setting the expectations up ahead of time. And then also it's the end of year. It's a busy time for everyone with family, holidays, a lot of different stressors that are coming up that's now coming out in work because this is another thing they have to do.
Yeah, and I think what's really important as just a leader or even just a human is remembering that the workspace isn't the only thing that's inside of their brain space. There's not a lot of people that can, untangle that web. I hate the word balance. I use the word blend. The
Uh,
word blend to me when it comes to that work life is what's most important. And you have to ask yourself, in what order are your priorities? And what, like in Mel Robbins, the let them then let me, right, is really important because she even talks right in the beginning of the book. She talks about, like, what if there's that manager is just like being real mean or whatever? Go ahead, let them. I can control what I can control. I can control my
mhm.
reaction. I can control how I'm tracking my progress. Maybe people always, you hear them, they quit managers, and like, they don't necessarily quit the job or the people, they quit the manager. This part, the review part, could make or break that decision of whether or not they're going to stay or go.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm in review season. No, I'm a
Mhm,
leader of people, and like, I find myself, I did my own personal review
mhm.
because that's within my control. And I have in my inbox right now 4 reviews that now need me to review. And I've had them in there for about a week. So why do you think leaders procrastinate on this or maybe even avoid doing them?
I think a lot of it is it's a time intensive. If you're a good leader, you're actually reading through everything that they said. You're taking that against your own notes and observations that you've had, and you're trying to develop how to tailor your response and how you want to say things in a way that they're going to respond to well. And it's not just you talking at them, you're having that conversation with them because this review is about them, it's not about the leader. And trying to figure out, hey, did they hit their goals? Did they not? Why? And you're trying to get some of this thinking ahead of time so that you can ask better questions, you can have a real conversation with them. And then it's a launch pad into next year and what goals that you need to set, or how do you need to tailor them, or do you need to be more clear in expectations to your team members? So I think it's kind of a combination of all those things. And again, it's everyone's busy. And so trying to carve out time to do one of those, let alone four of those, is a big undertaking.
Yeah. No, those are just the first 4. I've a whole bunch more, and I
Beat
cannot
you to
wait.
it.
And I mean, to be honest, like, I yeah, yeah, I really do because, with all that's coming up, whether it's from a personal life, hey, we got to run to this Christmas concert, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to buy this, we got to do that. And so there's all that. And to give people, and you said it perfectly, to give people the time and effort and concentrate on that review, it's a lot of energy. And let's say you're not at the top, you don't get to choose your stress. The top is saying, "Hey, get this done." HR is saying, "Hey, get this done." Hey, and then the team is looking to you to know, like, "Hey, we need some feedback. We want to know where we are." Not to mention whether your company gives bonuses or salary increases. A lot of that is really dependent on what goes into these reviews. So, why do you think corporate environments normalize just checking the box instead of developing people?
Ooh, that's a good one. Again, it comes back to time. Some people are just, well, I'm just going to do the bare minimum and give them their feedback and say they did a good job and move on. I think the other part of it is sometimes leaders don't know how to have those conversations or how to structure it to be beneficial for everyone. I think a lot of times corporate businesses develop more on the managerial side of are you hitting your metrics, but they're not developing that leadership style of, like you said, how do you connect with your people? How do you have these conversations so that they clearly understand what's expected of them and what they need to do to excel or to get to that next level, to get that promotion or a higher percentage of merit increase or whatever it is. So I think it's, again, part time and part people aren't taking the time to structure how to say and what to say.
What is a sign that a leader is avoiding doing the reviews?
Ooh, avoiding. I would say kind of the lead up to it is they're not checking in saying, "Hey, review's coming up, make sure you're gathering your data." Maybe in one of the one-on-ones leading up to the review, you're looking over their notes or their data and kind of hitting some key points of leading up to that review. Another one is, yeah, they just procrastinate and they just don't send reminders. And the only reminder you get is from the company saying, "Hey, reviews are due soon. Make sure you're getting them filled out." That could be a lot of it. And again, it comes back to having those hard conversations where they might be in a position where someone isn't meeting their goals and they know it and they've known it for a while and they haven't had that courage, like we've kind of been reading the Brene Brown books of they don't have that courage to address it. And now they're just anxious about this meeting because they're in this decisive point of, well, do I bring it up now or do I just let it go? And so, yeah, there could be a lot of reasons to it.
I want to lean into that. Okay.
Mhm.
The emotional turmoil of the high achievers that may not actually feel like they're hitting home runs. Maybe they're stuck. Like, how can a leader reduce that fear factor and maybe turn the conversation into a safe space?
I think in general, whether a high achiever or not, having that safe space is doing the work throughout the year. You're having those touch points in your one-on-ones, you're making sure that they're reaching their goals, understanding if they're struggling or are there any roadblocks to where it's affecting them reach a goal and how can you as a manager help alleviate that? I think by doing all these things throughout the year is going to make that review non-stress for them. The review should not be something people are shocked about. They should know how the review is going to go. They should know if they've hit their goals and if they're doing average or if they're doing above average. So I think that helps. High achievers is an interesting one. I would think that I am a high achiever or I just expect a lot more out of myself than what is asked of me. And so managing high achievers is tricky because you almost again have to set it up before saying, "Hey, this is what's being asked of you. I know you like to go above and beyond. So how do we structure this to your current goals to make sure that at the end of the year you are feeling proud of yourself and you are feeling like you have achieved what you wanted to?" Because again, some of those goals are just very basic. It's more on the manager to structure them to the person and to what they want to achieve.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of times where I would get my review and I started taking the reins and saying, "Here's your review." Because a lot of
Yes.
times it might, yeah, like we never give feedback up. And I had this wonderful manager, Karina. In fact, her nickname was Hurricane Karina because she was sometimes, if you got her angry, that the angry Ukrainian comes out, and oh my goodness, you better watch out.
Yeah.
And it was what was wonderful is she created psychological safety for the entire
Mm.
team. And so that's what opened up this space of like, well, let me give you some feedback. You've been doing great. here, here, and here, I need XYZ from you. And this way
Yes.
it was much as much of a review and an opportunity for me to grow, but also to kind of create that connection and allow me to become an owner as opposed
Mhm.
to just a doer. Like that was that thinker. I was like, how can I create that ownership that I want? I think the psychological safety thing is really important, and creating the grounds starts with, you said it, like one-on-ones throughout the year, and keep aligning through that. Now,
Yes.
I have a team of about 30, and like I didn't have that. I had 15 at one point, and then all of a sudden overnight, I had 30 because someone had left the company. And they're like, "Hey Brian, you're doing great. We're going to reward you with more work." And
Yep.
you know what? The thing was, is I was really happy about it because all the individuals that I get to work with are phenomenal. And each day is an opportunity for us to kind of create this environment that we view as like this environment of trust. And one of the biggest aspects that I've learned from all of this is like time management. You talk about meeting often. How often do you do your one-on-ones?
Oh, this is tricky. It's really per person. There are some people who I don't want to meet. I want to meet once a month. And, if I have an issue, I'm comfortable bringing it to you. Some people like more frequently, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly, just so that they have that and build that connection. I've had different ones, and it really depends on my relationship with the leader. And right now, I would be okay with one per month because we have enough meetings throughout the week. We have a weekly team meeting, and we have all these other things. We're like, that's all I need, because during these other meetings, we're communicating and you understand what I need and what I'm doing. When I'm in a leadership position, again, I kind of throw it back on the employee of, what do you need from me? And if they're like, oh, well, I don't know, then I'll say, okay, we'll do one every other week and we'll see how that is and we can adjust if needed. So it's kind of, again, a leader is to serve their team and their team needs come before their own. So, I'm okay with letting the team dictate a lot of things. And when a decision needs to be made, I'll make it, but it's doing what's best for the team and not what I need.
That was great. Cassie, what happens when a leader avoids smaller, difficult conversations throughout the year?
Ooh, it can lead to a lot of stress, a lot of headache, a lot of maybe resentment too, and just a lot of negative feelings, because if you don't address it, in a timely manner, those feelings are going to either increase or they're going to go completely away. And then when you do address it, the employee's like, what are you even talking about? Like, I don't even remember this situation. Why didn't you address this earlier? And then it kind of builds into, again, more negative feelings. So the faster you can address and have those hard conversations, the easier it will be, because you're not letting it fester and you're going to be able to have that data to give to the employee and that feedback as well.
Yeah, the that silence of the leader tends to erode that morale of the team.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there's small little things that just start happening. I've seen it before where, we got a new manager and that manager couldn't make the connection, which is hard, especially if you're coming from outside in. You know,
Yes.
one of the things that I learned in my experience moving into leadership was spend like the first 6 months listening.
Yes.
Just listen. Yeah, and so that's, I think that's also, there's this epidemic that is, a high performer will get promoted and they won't be given the training because they were promoted because they were really good, and a lot of people say like, oh well, they can replicate it, but they weren't given the proper training, or they were really good at self-management, not making those connections or anything.
Yes.
And so when they on board, the team is just like, all right, well, we're looking. And then the leader's like, well, do what I did. And
Yeah.
you said it perfectly. Everyone is different.
Mhm.
We have all these different personalities and communication styles. And if you don't put on the different hat with different people, you won't make that connection.
I just had this conversation with someone where they were in that same situation where I was doing this job and now I have to manage this job. And a lot of it was kind of that you oversee a lot more because you know how to do it versus letting the employee have some more autonomy in their role. And it isn't talked about much about how to transition between being a doer and now kind of being a thinker of, I'm no longer doing the hands-on work. I have to manage it from a higher level. And there's just not a lot of training around that. And also kind of something that you said too is, where you had a team of 15, now you have a team of 30 is again, where is some of that conversation of, well, now I kind of know what to do. Now it's just doubled. But like again, the time management, how do you incorporate that? How do you now incorporate meetings to involve all these different people? And it's tricky. And like I said, there's just not a lot of conversation around it or training.
There was so many times when I first took on the team where I felt like a failure, and I would tell people because I would ask them to put time on my schedule because I always keep my calendar open as much as possible to meet with me. But a lot of the differences with the personalities is some are, you tell me what to do, and they aren't the thinkers. And that's okay. It's just, I wish they would gut check me and say, hey, we haven't met in a while. Right. Or something similar to that. And I think what is really important here, I'm in the software space. And so in my industry, there is full-time employees and then there's contractor employees. Now, when I say
Yeah.
I have a team of 30, I have probably 8 to 10 full-time employees. Those are the ones that the company says you need to do these check-ins, you need to do this annual review. And then we have the contractors where the company, not saying the individuals, but the company doesn't care
Yeah.
about doing reviews. But
Right.
I care about doing the reviews. I care
Yes.
about making that connection. And I think that's one of the more difficult aspects of time management, stress. What hat do I have to wear in this meeting? And then right afterwards, if I have 2 or 3 back to back one on ones, my emotional meter just goes. And I feel like sometimes I felt like I didn't do them justice. So I'm super transparent, and a lot of times that's to my own detriment, but we're only human. So,
Yes. I think a lot about kind of what you said too, is even like what you said, the first 6 months, you need to listen and not, try to make your own initiatives or try to change things. Again, it's something that's not communicated a lot where, you're a new manager, you think you want to, oh, well, I really like process improvement, so I'm going to dive into this, but you're not really understanding the team dynamics or how to communicate with your team and vice versa is you have to set time to dive into what your expectations are, how you communicate. And I always relate it to what is your default? If a situation happens, what is your first reaction? That is your default. And you have to understand that not everyone is going to perceive your default in the same way. Like I'm a very direct communicator, and I know if I do my default to someone, they're going to be like, whoa, man, like that was a lot versus having to tailor it to effectively communicate. So, like you said, that first 6 months, like you have to be able to know your team, set your expectations, understand your team's expectations of you because they're not all going to be the same. And you might have a perception of what a leader is, but everyone else has their own too. That's kind of that building block into being that effective leader and building those connections and setting time and building an effective team.
yeah. So, Cassie, if I was to do a review, what does a human-centered review look and feel compared to
Mm.
maybe a traditional one?
Ooh, that's a good question. A human-centered is I think of it, in terms of myself first is I'm going to say my truth, tailor it to the person, and be open and honest and transparent. It's also kind of leading with empathy as well as again, this is a busy time for everyone. I know like it right now in Cedar Rapids, there have been a lot of layoffs. So thinking of all the different stressors that someone could have coming into this meeting, acknowledging that, but also still getting your job done, which is providing them a performance review that is reflected of their actual performance, and not always catering to, oh well, this is a hard time for them. So it's balancing speaking the truth and also leading with empathy, which is hard to do.
Yeah, and even tough feedback is still a
Mhm.
gift. The
Yes,
the feedback is absolutely something as long as you stay honest and true and you know how to communicate it to the individual, so it means that you're already connected with them. It can be received not necessarily as an attack, but as an opportunity to walk the path of improvement.
100%. I think that's why, when I think of performance reviews, it is so time intensive because, hey, I want to say something, but how do I say it so that they will understand it and they're not going to think, negative thoughts about me or the situation. And also, this is why sometimes I use Chat GPT to rephrase or give me options of how to say things that, again, will land with them in a positive light.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring up AI because I'm not
Love
just
it.
using it to not sound like a jerk in email. I can't tell
Yeah,
you how many times I've written an email and I
same.
said, "Don't sound like a jerk. Rewrite this for me." And it sounds a lot more professional, a little bit more
Mhm.
factual, and sometimes it's a light. It makes me chuckle, which is great.
Yeah.
We talk about making these connections. We talk about the consistency and everything. Let's talk framework. Now,
Mhm.
one of the things is that we talked about trying to do it throughout the year. And I just want to share one or two little things that I do so that the listeners can understand from an individual perspective as well as a leader perspective. I have a lot of one-on-ones and I also have one-on-ones with my manager and my manager's manager. And so one thing that I do is I have two reminders on my calendar. First thing on Monday, first thing on Friday. Monday is the kudos folder. So a long time ago, someone said, "Hey, keep a kudos folder," and I teach a lot of my team members to do this. And what it is anytime anyone gives you a kudos, you put it in the folder. This is that evidence, or even when you're feeling down, you can go look and you're like, look at I got pat myself on the back. Look at all these kudos, right? And so this is perfect because then you can consolidate it and put it into your review. But also during that kudos folder moment, I'm also writing a win, a blocker, and my focus. And the reason why I do that is one for myself. If I can just write down one win from last week, whether it's the team or myself, I keep it very simple. I'm seeing my progress. Each week I have a win. And then I have a blocker. All right, this is what I'm tackling. This is what I'm going to get over, me or the team. And those are the trials and tribulations. If we just like had boring days, it would be a terrible story to tell. But that also tracks a lot of the growth that you've had throughout that week. And then lastly, the focus. And the focus is like the next 5 days, I'm going to do this. I do it for myself as well as if my manager says, "Hey, what are you working on this week?" Yes, you could proactively send it to them, but I have it canned, ready to go. Like this was this week, this was last week, and this is where my focus is or hurdles that I have to jump over. So that's on Monday and it takes me 5 minutes. Fridays, I do what I call is the add clarity system. And that
Mm.
exercise is add is automate, delegate, and delete. So the reason why I bookend my week like this is because I look back at what I did and then I look for opportunities for process improvements. Can I batch all of my invoicing into one area? Can I use AI to get to a quicker answer? Or delegation to me is not shit rolling downhill, pardon the language. It's actually let me match the opportunity. Like this person's energy and their skill set is here, and then I'll match that to an opportunity for them so that I can then champion their skill set. And then delete, obviously, I call it shaking the apple tree. Here's this meeting, here's this task. Nobody's listening to it. Let me just not do it and write down why I'm not doing it. That way, if someone comes back to me a month or two, they're like, "Hey, whatever happened to that?" Well, I got rid of it, but with that free time, I allocated it towards this, and this was that value. And then they're like, "Oh, okay, great. What are some other frameworks or systems that can keep the individual or even the leader that you have that can keep them up to date all year round?"
Yeah, I love those. I wrote them down because I always like trying and implementing new things. For myself, I use OneNote like no other. I love OneNote. I've got, a page where it's a brain dump because there's just so much stuff going around up here. I just type everything out. And then I have another page for like my weekly tracker. Like, what am I actually going to do each day and try to hit those? Because it kind of pushes me a little bit to kind of stay above things and push me to like, okay, I've done three of my things. I've got two more and it's, 2:30. How am I going to maximize my time and make progress on these things? So I do that. And then I have another page of everything that I've completed, like just little tasks, big projects, everything that I've completed within the year to again help with my performance review. And I want to structure it a little bit differently though, because it's all just one long list where I want to put it into specific topics where it's like process improvement or impact throughout the company, tailoring it a little bit more. So then, when I go to my performance review, I can have those specific topics and build them into it. Cause right now it's just a list of random things. So that's kind of the framework that I do. And I also try to have SMART goals, specific, measurable, all the things, because it helps keep me accountable towards things. So whenever I have my goals for the year, I develop a SMART goal and I have my own tracker outside of the tool because the tool I don't want to go into it every day. So that I can actually see it, and reflect on it once a week. Building it as I go throughout the year and not just during the mid-year and during the end of year review. And I think, what leaders can do is take some of those ideas and thoughts and again, kind of put it on the employees saying, hey, this is what I would like to see, some sort of tracker that you can use either weekly or daily so that you are tracking your progress on these goals. And again, let them figure out the format because if they're figuring it out, they need to be use what's effective to them. And again, like checking in on them of this is your goal and I know it's going to be a long one, what's your progress on it? And just keeping tabs like that. Sometimes I don't think it has to be too intensive just because again, leaders have a million things going on and, a lot of people to track. So if they had their own little tracker for each person, it could be a lot. But it really is, like you said, just having that connection, having those conversations with your employees and checking in on them and helping where they need help with.
That was great. And one of the things that, you having a military background is an AAR. And
Yes.
for those of you that don't know what an AAR is, Cassie, can you share what an
Yes.
AAR is?
So they are an after action review and we do them after any event. And what I actually really like about it is you take whoever coordinated or was the instructor for that event out of the room and you have whoever was part of the event, they fill out, what was supposed to happen, what did happen, sustains and improves. And what this does is that the people who are able to have an actual honest conversation without, the instructors interrupting, well, that happened because of X, Y, and Z. No, this is candid, uninterrupted feedback. And the first two is, what was supposed to happen. I was supposed to give a 15-minute presentation over a performance review. What actually happened? Well, I gave a 10-minute, presentation. So it gives that framework of, well, why and how do we make that better for next time? But then sustain and improves is whatever that they thought went well and what didn't. And a lot of people hate doing these, but I absolutely love them because again, like we've been talking about, it's that true feedback so that you can make the next event, the next presentation better and more effective for that next group that comes through. So highly effective if you do them correctly.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wanna double click on is the fact that you do it right after an event.
Yes.
And
Yep.
and the reason why is because the human memory is terrible. You have like, when you do them right afterwards, everything is very vivid. You can add so much extra detail. But when you have because that's known as the experiential self. This is someone who is experiencing it in the moment, and when it just happened, you can repeat all the nitty-gritty detail. But
Yes.
come review time, let's say it's 3 months, 6 months, or hell, 2 weeks, because I don't even remember what I ate. last week. But that is the reflective self. And the reflective self is an average of all the peaks and valleys of that experience. There's a gap there because we're just not great at
Yeah.
remembering. Now, if you want to remember something better, this is another aspect of it. You immediately, this is why AARs are so important, is you immediately retrieve that information again. By going back and retrieving it, now it's being stored into longer term memory. It's not just short term. It's not just that brain dump. I loved the aspect of it, like you're reflecting, you're trying to find process improvements in real time. That's very valuable. And I think people need to understand that you can do it everywhere and anywhere. And it doesn't even have to be very formal. You could do it loose, just as long as you're going through and reflecting. A lot of people forget that last part of the feedback loop, which is reflecting. Because if you're failing or succeeding, if you're not reflecting, in the end, I view it as a fail.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and the other thing with, um, the AARs is, like you said, is if I know I'm going through this event and it's a day-long thing, like you said, by the end of the day, I'm gonna forget all these little nitty-gritty points that I had. So I always have a notebook and I'm writing down every little thing that maybe didn't go according to a plan, which is fine, but it gives me detail of, hey, there was 5 things that didn't go correct, and they're all kind of tied to process improvement. And it's a way to give better feedback on that AAR. So yeah, then I think reflection is huge. And one thing I do at the end of my performance review is I really take a minute just for myself to think, what did I do the best and why? Is it something that I'm passionate about? Is it something that I really love doing? And then what didn't I do so best at and why? Did I maybe think I would have done better at it? And then kind of last one is, what did I wait to the last minute on? If maybe it was a goal that I was like, maybe wasn't even important to me. Maybe it was something my manager gave me, or maybe it wasn't something I was passionate about. And I take that time to reflect so that next year I can better um, understand what goals I'm going to have maybe trouble with meeting because I'm just not passionate about them and prioritize them first. So I think taking that time to reflect can help you prioritize, understand yourself, and be more effective.
I mean, that you're giving golden nuggets here. It's wonderful. So, Cassie, I want to kind of close this with what is one thing a leader should do this week to prepare for a better review conversation?
Ooh, this week, I would say listen. They need to listen to what issues they might be having within the week or even personal. What's something that's maybe taken their attention away from completing their performance review or maybe keeping them from completing those goals and have those check-ins, but really just listen. I think everyone can be more effective if they listen more.
That's why we have two ears and one mouth.
Yeah,
It's, that is definitely the message that I think we all need to listen to. Dad jokes are just coming out now.
nailed it.
Okay. All right, Cassie, thank you so much for joining me on the show. How can others reach out to you with any questions or concerns, or even just how can they consume your content?
Yeah, so I do have a LinkedIn, Cassie Underwood, it's my name. And then I do have a TikTok. It's at Leadership Unscripted, and that is where I give a whole bunch of pointers, advice, understanding your default self, and a lot of things that are kind of near and dear to my heart that have helped me get through some tough leadership times. And those are the two ways, LinkedIn and TikTok.
Excellent, excellent. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Bad Day Excellence. I'm Brian Walsh, your guide to habit crafting and your biggest champion. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.